So how's everybody doing? This is Hank back with another Two Birds and a Third short discussion. And this is going to be more of a rant than a short discussion because I feel like I haven't had a chance to talk about this turd of an individual ever since I've been on YouTube. And I'm surprised that, I've talked about Skip Bayless a million times. This guy is the turdiest turd that I've ever heard, okay? And I don't really listen to this guy, but if this is the type of content that he puts out, then yeah, I'm not going to listen to the guy because he's full of turds, okay? So ever since I known about Colin Cowherd, I have always known him to be a loudmouth that always picks up on trends when it comes to sports and does a horrible job backing up his points and arguments. He will say something that he thinks is true and not use any evidence to back up his claims, but merely just make hot takes that are smellier than his own turds. And he calls people out and he makes himself look dumb. Don't even talk about the hot take he made where he said that Chip Kelly was good and the Eagles were stupid for getting rid of him after that 20-12 start in those first two seasons. But he completely ignored the fact that he went 6-9 in his last season. And don't even talk to me about how he jinxed our starting quarterback Carson Wentz. So we know that he doesn't know what he's talking about and he's a giant jinx. So earlier today, he went on a tirade about the city of Philadelphia, and this is my response to his incoherent ramblings. By the way, I don't mind if you criticize the city of Philadelphia or the team. Just try to be original and somewhat intelligent with your claims.
I want to talk about the city of Philadelphia for 3 minutes.
This ought to be good.
Which has to be the dumbest sports city in America.
Oh, really? The dumbest? Cleveland? Detroit? Two cities that are probably dumber when it comes to sports. And by the way, that's no offense to those cities and those sports fans. I'm sure that your teams have an extremely rich history, and there are many phrases that you can come up when it comes to Philadelphia to bash them. But this coming from one of the dumbest people on TV, that is really saying something. Okay, Cleveland, okay? Back to Cleveland, the city who, after LeBron James left to Miami, they burned his jersey. They burned the mayor of Cleveland's jersey, basically. Okay? And again, no offense to Cleveland. I have nothing against you or your fans, but please, that's a short order even for you, COWturd.
Because they ran Andy Reid out of town.
We did? Pretty sure that the fans aren't responsible for whether or not a coach gets hired or fired. I have a ton of respect for Coach Reid, but he outstayed his welcome in this city. From 2011 to 2012, I knew it was probably time. The clock management was awful, the run-to-pass ratio was awful, the nepotism, the making an offensive line coach a defensive coordinator, the lack of ability to draft in the last few years. That's why he was no longer the head coach of the Eagles. After an awful 4-12 season where the team lost 8 straight games from October to December, setting a franchise low was the reason he was fired. There's no running out of the city by the fans. We respected the most winningest coach in the franchise. But he needed a new scenery, and the fans knew it because his current situation back then was way worse.
This is amazing. Andy Reid's won 60% of his NFL games with average to below average quarterbacks.
Donovan McNabb is an average to below average quarterback? Okay. Donovan McNabb is not a Hall of Famer, but he's far from being a below average quarterback. If you look at the statistics of Donovan McNabb, you will see a guy that after 11 seasons or so threw 216 touchdowns and 100 interceptions, which is a 21.6 touchdowns to 10 interception ratio around, which is one of the best touchdowns per interception ratios in NFL history. Not to mention, he was injured during half of the 2002, 2005, and 2006 NFL seasons. So that put a dip in his numbers. The average quarterback was selected to the Pro Bowl during the 2000, 2001, 2003, 2004, and 2009 seasons. So average, my dear Aunt Sally. I know that the Pro Bowl isn't a very prestigious thing, but the sports world raved about players like Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott being the next Donovan McNabb all the time. Let's not forget that Michael Vick had 31 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in one season. And that isn't average. I might not be a fan of Vic, but come on. Average? You're an idiot, bro.
Nobody's done that in 20 years.
Nobody has won 60% of their games with an average quarterback in 20 years? Jim Harbaugh won more than 60% of his games with Colin Kaepernick. I don't consider Joe Flacco to be average, but he has played averagely for the last 3 seasons. I don't understand your overall methodology to who is below average at quarterback, especially when Donovan McNabb went to Pro Bowls and was considered one of the best quarterbacks of his era by his peers.
He got to 5 NFC championships and a Super Bowl with a quarterback with an 85 passer rating in his career and a 59% completion ratio, Donovan McNabb. Nobody does that.
Brett Favre, a quarterback that played during the McNabb era, the whole way through as a matter of fact, a Hall of Famer in his own rights, had a passer rating of 85.1. Average quarterback, my ass. You know passer rating is extremely meaningless of a stat, just like QBR, which only gets brought up by Skip Bayless because both of you are absolute know-nothings about football. Bring me a stat that actually matters. By the way, besides Terrell Owens, Deshaun Jackson, and Brian Westbrook, tell me a receiver that McNabb actually had during his career, because he made do with a ton of stinkers.
Andy Reid has won 61% of his games. That's better than Mike Holmgren, who had a Hall of Fame quarterback or two. Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin.
Again, no, he didn't. Funny that you skewed your statistics with his overall record in Kansas City, which he has won over 9 games a season since he's been there. His winning percentage was not nearly as good as it was with the Eagles. He had a 59% winning percentage with the Philadelphia Eagles, which puts him close to on pace with Holmgren. You idiot! Talk about revisionist history.
It's even with a legend, Tom Landry.
You do know that the Dallas Cowboys of the 70s, with Tom Landry, basically won the NFC East every single season, and I think went to like 8 NFC championship games, I believe.
But Andy Reid got run out of Philadelphia. Now think about that. He won 4 straight NFC championships.
He didn't win 4 straight NFC championship games. He only won 1. He went to 4 straight, but he only won 1.
Aaron Rodgers, with a great coach, with a good GM, in a weaker division.
In a weaker division? Now I know you didn't do your research. The NFC East was the bottom of the barrel from 2000 to 2004. Dallas had 3 straight 5-11 seasons and a 6-10 season in 2004. Washington was the joke of the NFL with the Steve Spurrier experiment. And they ditched Marty Schottenheimer. And the Giants? Sure, they went to the Super Bowl in 2000, but they were only competitive in 2002 otherwise. The Eagles were like the Patriots dynasty in the sense that they were going to the playoffs every year, and everyone else was probably going to be like 6-10. Again, this isn't a shot at Andy Reid at all. It's just funny because during the Rodgers era, the Vikings have been good, the Lions have been good, and the Bears were good in one season. It's like this guy didn't even do any of his research.
Aaron Rodgers, 8 years, 3 NFC championships. Andy went to 5. Andy Reid was bum rushed out of Philadelphia.
Again, no, he wasn't. The fans don't make the decisions, you horrible excuse for a TV personality. That was the worst fake laugh in television history. You deserve the Rotten Tomato right next to Masters of Disguise and the Love Guru.
By the way, 19 years coaching, 16 non-losing seasons with average quarterbacks.
He didn't coach 19 years with the Eagles. He coached 13 or 14. Please stop equating what he's done in Kansas City because they're a much different team. All he had to do was build the offense because the defense was already there.
He single-handedly resurrected Michael Vick's career.
No, he didn't. Michael Vick said many times that he didn't watch film. Vick was only good for 1 season. So it's really nothing to do with the way Vick played because Vick was a react kind of player. He did what he wanted. Vic also had his worst season of his career under Andy Reid. But you didn't even talk about that, did you?
He single-handedly resurrected Alex Smith's career.
Face palm. Epic face palm. Alex Smith's career was never resurrected. Alex Smith played like 6 piss-poor seasons with the 49ers until Harbaugh came along and basically made the 49ers a championship-caliber team, and Alex Smith was looking very good. You can't resurrect something that already came back to life.
San Francisco kicked Alex Smith out of town. Who does that? Winning with average quarterbacks. Joe Gibbs, about the only one I can think of, and he's called a legend.
Bill Parcells won with average to below average quarterbacks. Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler, Drew Bledsoe, Vinny Testaverde, Quincy Carter. Gosh, this guy is an epic moron.
But this is what Philadelphia does. The Phillies had Terry Francona. They ran him out of town.
The Phillies averaged a 4th place finish when Francona was the manager of the Phillies. He never had over a 500 record. I'm sorry, nobody is that patient. Nobody. This isn't because I'm also a Phillies fan, but this was the worst example you could have given.
He's the best manager in baseball.
With the Cleveland Indians, not the Philadelphia garbage Phillies of the late 1990s. You see what I mean when this guy tells half-truths?
He wins everywhere.
He didn't win with the Phillies, so go in the corner and cry in shame.
Since leaving Philadelphia, Terry Francona has been managing 14 years. He's never had a losing record.
He didn't have a winning record with the Phillies in 4 seasons. Nothing better than 3rd place finish. I'm a fan. I wanted him out of town too. Unless you wanted to act like you purposefully would be struck with mediocrity.
You ran Andy Reid out of town.
For the millionth time. No, we didn't. Jeffrey Lurie fired him because he went 4-12 after starting 3-1 in the 2012 NFL season. Whoever allowed COWturd to air this hot take should have pulled it immediately because there are so many holes in it, I could put it in my bagel sandwich.
You ran Terry Francona out of town.
Jeebus Christmas. Terry Francona was deservingly fired for not winning.
Jay Wright's one of the top 5 coaches in college basketball. You're on him constantly.
Last time I checked, they love him. So I don't know what you're talking about, bro.
By the way, Philly was originally the nation's capital, and you blew that too.
What does that have to do with Philadelphia sports fans? You've just relegated to talking trash.
Yeah, late 1700s. You probably ran George Washington out of town.
Oh, yeah, that's so funny. You probably ran your wife out of town.
I'm sorry. Andy Reid's been in the sport 20 years. He's winning more than Holmgren, Parcells, and Coughlin. Run out of town.
Again, I have nothing against Andy Reid. I'm happy that he is in the place he's at. But this guy stands here acting like Andy Reid is Bill Belichick. But he isn't. Let's talk about a guy who has choked more times than he should have. A guy who has let players go more than he should have. A guy who didn't know how to use the clock. And the guy who forgot that he had one of the best backs in the NFL. COWturd is basically licking this guy's junk and blaming Philly fans for the firing. Andy Reid got fired on his own merits. He doesn't need mental midgets like you defending him.
Resurrecting careers. Maybe Philly fans are so dopey, they just don't like the word read. They don't like to read. I don't know what it is.
After listening to this and the amount of research you did, it doesn't sound like you did any reading.
But you cheered Michael Irvin's career-ending injury.
Wow. Now for the pot shots. I thought this was going to be an intelligible segment. Let's not act like Michael Irvin was a flawless person and player. You do know he once stabbed a guy right in the neck with the scissors and blew coke through his nose, right? Now, I don't condone cheering when players get injured, but everyone does it. You know, we were the ones who were silent when Victor Cruz got injured in 2014, even though we didn't like him either.
I can't trust a fan base that has a courtroom and a jail under their stadium.
Lincoln Financial Field no longer has a courtroom and jail under their stadium. They got rid of it in 2005 because the fans were no longer acting unruly.
But do you get and appreciate how good Francona, Jay Wright, and Andy Reid are? He's doing what nobody can do in football. Win with quarterbacks people don't want.
Nobody wanted Donovan McNabb? That's really funny. I seem to remember the Redskins trading McNabb for a second-round draft pick. I seem to remember the Cardinals trading Kevin Cobb for a second and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, who right now is one of the best slot corners in the NFL.
It's incredible, and they're the best team in the NFL. They are.
And you are the worst sports personality to ever deck my television. You are.